So how you feeling about the show, man?
Okay.
Okay. We got this idea. We want you to write a song.
Right.
But there's 10 teams in the league.
Yeah.
And want to make sure that we cover more than just G2 and Fnatic.
Okay.
Yeah? You think you can do that for me?
I can probably do that.
Okay. So we'll see you on set.
Okay. See you then.
And take Ender with you.
Fine.
One, two, three, four.
Greatest league in the world is doing fine, making lots of memes, having a great time. Incredible games, incredible moments. Watch LEC, you'll know that we're owning. Many intros, LEC updates, making cringy content. Drake and Dur are mates. Victory moments, ganks, falls, and feints. Flaming all chat, one to use in pain.
Fine.
New year, not every team is great. Some run it down, some are just dead weight.
Kilo.
Misfits through the whole year away. Benching the feeders to try and play leader. Who also turned out he was a feeder, running it down. Like, one good game, maybe? Yeah, one? No?
One,
Nah?
two,
No?
three, four.
Greatest league in the world is doing fine, making lots of memes, having a great time. Now it's time for Fnatic and G2.
Hold up. We got some teams in the back.
Despite all the hype, OG and Summer still bummed. Maybe need a manager like expect his mom.
Mama.
Time for vitality, don't have a choice. Guess I can say their coach has a pretty nice voice.
Shurima.
Perfect Tara Gold came from the sky. Vander exclaims, how good am I?
Not good enough.
Splyce were the favorites, picked Rogue, thought they were fine. How could they forget Rogues kill you from behind?
Back door.
Greatest league in the world is doing fine, making lots of memes, having a great time. But it doesn't really matter because G play Fnatic. It's the best series that we've ever seen. Might have been a dream, just the EU dream. Reckless gave up on playing ADC. Now he just plays Karma, cause that champ is free.
GG.
Caps, craps, doesn't matter to you. Best mid in the world, second best on G2. It's the best series that we've ever seen. Might have been a dream, just the EU dream. It's the best series that we've ever seen. Might have been a dream, made the fans scream. So good, 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 so good. Woo!
Welcome back to Berlin, Germany for round 2 of the LEC regional qualifiers. Schalke and Splyce have spent the entire year fighting for a spot at Worlds, and tonight one of them will earn the honor of representing Europe on home soil. There is Upset, the focal point of Schalke 04 in yet another fight to make it to the World Championship. My name is Shox, and I'm joined here by Frosk and Yamato Cannon, or should I say The Voice, as we get into the second day of the regional qualifier. Give us one of the so goods.
So good.
So good. All
You have
right.
to put me on the spot, embarrass me again.
No, it wasn't embarrassing at all. I thought that was a tremendous performance. I would say the song was better than the series we saw yesterday. Not to flame anyone, but yesterday, of course, Splyce advanced to the next round of the regional qualifier after a slow series versus Origin. And it's always hard for us because we don't want to be too negative about the teams that we saw or we see playing in our league. But these are teams that are fighting to get to Worlds Frost, so it has to be better today.
So the good news is that it came down to, or it's going to come down to Splyce versus Schalke, which ultimately these teams have been consistent the entire year long. We've been talking about Splyce for a long time, Schalke right on their heels, and so it feels like we are kind of climaxing into this moment that everyone saw coming, but at the same time, yeah, yesterday was a bit uninspiring. It was not the highs that we expect to see of Splyce. Origin, of course, playing with the sub, so kind of playing from the back foot as the best of 5 started, but not the greatest look.
Yeah, for sure. I think Splyce, what you can say is coming into this one, I guess maybe the first stage was a warm-up. I think that's the best thing you can take away from it.
Well, we looked at previous regional qualifiers, and that is indeed the case. Usually that first round of the regional qualifier, everyone's really stressed. They haven't played in a while. Some of them have missed out on the playoffs. So we'll take that as the reason for the questionable plays yesterday. Today, though, it is all on the line. And now we don't want to see any more of that, Frost, because whoever wins between Schalke 04 and Splyce find themselves in Worlds.
And I think the good news is that when you look at Splyce, for one, you know that there's a ceiling beyond that. Xerxes in particular didn't have the greatest performance yesterday, and you know that he can perform better than that. You guys kept talking about it on the analyst test. So theoretically, heading into this best of 5, you know that there's that extra gear that Splyce should be able to find. And then on the other side, it's, okay, we saw Schalke most recently. I thought it was a bad stylistic matchup across from Fnatic. Splyce should actually give Schalke a lot of time to breathe, so we should also get to see them in top form.
For sure.
Hopefully so. Yamato, what can you say about Origin? I think, of course, we know that they couldn't play with cold, which didn't do them any favors. But then you have to look back at the entire year and say you just didn't perform in summer overall.
Oh, it's crazy to think because in the first split that they played, they didn't set the high expectation for themselves. They managed to clinch a second position. They lost to G2, which is okay. There's no shame in that. Then in summer, all of a sudden, there was always this hope. All the pros were talking about it because we got to practice against them. We were always saying they're going to bounce back because in practice they are so good. They have these players individually that have the capacity to do great things, but it just never came through. People kept saying it, and up until the end, even on the analysis yesterday, I said, oh, OG is going to show up because they have this capacity to do it, but it just never, ever happened. And it's quite disappointing because everyone knows what they could potentially be.
Yeah, very disappointing for Origin. We'll see what they come up with next year. But while the LEC teams are battling for a spot at Worlds, our next superstars are well underway with EU Masters. So here's Medic for an update.
With the LEC split winding up, many of you might have been wondering how you'll feel your insatiable need for European League of Legends. Well, fret not. The European Masters is already underway with 20 of Europe's strongest teams taking to the Rift. There's plenty to be excited about. Now, if you've never watched the EU Masters before, here are the cliff notes. 13 teams qualify straight into the main stage by winning their respective European regional leagues. Those teams are then joined by 3 more who've qualified through the play-in stages, which has been happening this past week. And you might wonder why EU Masters is so important. Well, historically, it's been a springboard for European players to get their name out there and to move up into the LEC. Last split, 21 players in the LEC had previously played in the EU Masters, including Rogue's entire roster, Selfmade, and Nemesis. With the playing stages wrapping up, I wanted to take a look at the 3 teams that qualified and highlight 3 key players, starting off with Special on XL. XL automatically qualified for the play-in stages after going undefeated in the round robin, and Special was a key component to their success. Having previously played in the LEC in spring, Special had a lot to prove coming into this year's EU Masters. His LeBlanc performance against Vitality B silenced a lot of his critics, ending the game 6-0-7, and he consistently caught the French team off guard. Now, next up is Berlin International Gaming from the Dark region. After starting off the group stage at 1-3, Big matched up against Vitality B in their knockout game. Coming in as the underdogs, Big mechanically outclassed Vitality, specifically Kazi, with an impeccable Lucian performance. His ability to dodge in and out of fights, waiting for his moment to dash forward, makes him a key player to look out for in the group stages. And finally, Rogue Esports Club continue to be giant killers as they took down Origin Barcelona in their second knockout match. Their 2-0 win was defined by strong team fights, a powerful mid-jungle duo, and in Game 2, former H2K mid laner Selfie found multiple assassinations on his LeBlanc, and a great Elder Dragon fight managed to secure them the win in the end. Now, if you want to catch these 3 teams and all the other teams in the European Masters, group stages take place from the 16th to the 19th of September. Make sure you tune in on twitch.tv/Riot Games at 6 p.m. CEST. Back to you, Shox.
Thank you very much, Medic. Always nice to see who the rookies will be that come out of Europe that we may see at Worlds 2020. But as Worlds 2019 in Europe gets closer, we also want to highlight some of our best moments from past World Championship over this regional qualifier. Now, today we are casting our minds back to 2016. The tournament was held in the US of A with stops in San Francisco, Chicago, New York, ending in Los Angeles' Staples Center for the final. SKT were the favorites, and spoiler alert, they would go on to win the whole thing. But for Europe, all eyes were set on G2 Esports, who had taken the EULCS by storm in 2016. Now, the third seed out of Europe was Splyce. They had a very difficult task and managed to get only a single win in a stacked group. But Kabi and crew did take down Uzi and RNG, and ever since then, Kabi has been fighting to get that new shot at the world stage. And then G2 Esports, all eyes of Europe on them, got seeded into a group with Rox Tigers, Albus Nox Luna, and Counter Logic Gaming. You would say, well, that's doable for them. They should get out of that group. But Perks and crew only got a single win, had a shameful exit from Worlds, and an international trauma was brewing. And that trauma would take years to overcome, but as we know, they would get back up. Now, luckily for all of Europe, H2K with Odoamne, Jankos, Ryu, Forgiven, and Vander stepped up and grabbed the #1 spot in a group with EDG, AHQ, and INTZ. Now, I won't deny there was a little luck of the draw, but hey, H2K beat their quarterfinal opponent Albus Nox Luna, avenging G2 and locking in their spot in Madison Square Garden. Now, in the semifinals, the future world champion Samsung made quick work of the European squad, but H2K can have fond memories of saving a Worlds that seemed pretty doomed for Europe overall. Today, Odoamne has a chance to get back to the biggest stage, and with Schalke 04, continue the tradition of Europe bringing a new team to Worlds every single year. When I was preparing this look back at Worlds, it wasn't the positive one, you know? It wasn't the 2015 one or the 2018 one, but nevertheless, I think it's an important one because sometimes success comes from an unexpected team.
And what's crazy is kind of casting your mind back, especially looking at that Splyce roster. How many players went on to have incredible legacies? I mean, you went with them, you had Wonder, you had Mickey on that roster. Kabe also gets another shot at trying to make his berth on an international stage. It's pretty crazy, all of the talent that was jammed onto that one lineup.
It was crazy because that year, I remember after Spring Split, we were in relegations.
Yep.
And a lot of people were telling me, you have to kick Wonder, you have to kick Kobe, you need to get new players, get this player. I was like, no. These guys, they haven't shown anything. And they've just continued to give to the league. And I think they're all incredible players.
Absolutely. What a vision. Now time to showcase rather what EU is all about as we turn up the fun to 100 with champion charades. If you haven't watched this segment before, it's charades with champions. Frosk has never gotten to play this one.
I never get to play it. I'm so good at charades.
Is going to whisper a champion in her ear, and we are going to try and guess it.
Okay, you guys ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll give you space. Oh, shoot. Whoa. Is this Vi? Yeah.
Ah, that's so easy.
First, I got intimidated because you were punching towards me, and
there we go.
It's basically my chroma.
Well, I was thinking about the Lee Sin with the boxing skin as well.
Yes.
I would have pulled the leg up. Don't worry, I'm not an amateur here.
Fine. Very good job. All right, Yamato, I think you're up next.
All right.
Why are you like a secret agent? Xin Zhao? No,
Nate?
it's a gun.
Twitch? Poppy? No. Orn? No.
Okay, he's shooting
Graves?
something.
No. A suit?
A suit.
Lucian? No. This is his crossbow or something, isn't it? Hammers, crossbows. Wait.
No.
What?
Give me a different animation. Give me the ultimate.
Marks
This is it.
Pulling? Iloawi? No. Huh?
A safe. Okay, you're in a suit.
Okay, so Lucian is in a suit.
It's not Lucian.
Look at.
Is it a spear? It's a hammer.
Is it Devin? Is it Jace?
Yes. Jace. I'm shooting my crossbow, I'm switching it to hammer, and then you tell me, show me the ult.
So
I'm like,
good, that's so
what
good.
the hell?
Listen, just for everyone at home, you might say, oh, how didn't they get it? It's not as easy as it looks when you're up here and all the lights are on and...
You couldn't give me like the 1, 2, 3?
I was, us.
Look.
It looked like Zinza, you told me.
Yeah, because you like... Oh, you look like a street
Martin.
cleaner with your
All right.
broom.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Garen.
Yes! Whoa.
Do I get points? Is there a point system?
Have to go once the other way. Great.
I like how you clasped both hands. You were like very secure
I was like,
before the spin. You could have just
go.
spun arms wide.
Demacia! Okay, Frost gets the last one. So it's wait.
Oh, no.
I have 1 point. You have 1 point.
Okay.
And you have 1 point. So tiebreak. Well,
This is
I
hard.
said
no
Vi-
one
I
gets
said
it. She
Vi.
wins.
Why would they do
Okay.
this to me? Okay.
I'm happy I didn't have to do that. Crap.
Urgot.
Urgot. No? No, it's not Urgot. Crab block? Who's a crab?
Winston. No, that's a different game.
No.
Uh,
Elise? Who's a scorpion? No. Elise? Ah! Yay! I love how you didn't even say
What
anything
is
when it was
this?
right.
You're like
What
a
is
spider.
this is a spider?
Okay, I had to do. I know she's not a crab. I know it's a spider, but I had to get you guys on Monster Champion.
It's funny, he wanted to do the crab walk yesterday. Wow!
I was so confident.
I should have just done the can.
I'm just glad I didn't have to do that. That was great. No, great job. Champion Charade. I'm going to check the VODs later to see if people in the chat had it earlier than us. I think probably yes, but that was a lot of fun. And we also got some movement out there. So now we are ready to settle into...
Stretched.
We're stretched.
Warmed
a
up.
more serious issue, and also what is the most important here today, and that is the qualification for Worlds between Schalke 04 and Splyce. And as we get a bit closer to the action, let's hear what Xerxes has to say before today's series.
Thank you very much, guys. I am joined by Duke backstage here. Now, Duke, we saw Splyce struggle near the end of the split and then have a pretty disappointing series against Rogue. What have you guys done in the time off you've had until now to prepare for these series?
Yeah, we had a slump at the last 3 weeks, I think, as of the loss against Fnatic, which really shattered us at the end of the split, and we were just the shadow of ourselves in playoffs. So, I mean, every team has some cycles like this, and it was...
Cool. Oh, that wasn't Cersei, but I think we're getting him now.
Approach the
No?
game a bit different.
Okay, hi. No, okay, well, yeah, we've got it. There we go. Xerxes, tell us what's up. I'm being trolled.
Thank you very much, guys. I'm joined by Xerxes, the jungler for Splyce. Now, I want to talk a little bit about yesterday's...
Oh, no? Okay, well, I'm just going to
Thank you very much, guys. I'm joined by Xerxes, the jungler for Splyce. Now, I want to talk a little bit about yesterday's performance. The games were a lot slower than we're used to seeing, and after coming off the back of Fnatic G2, I think people wondered about sort of the quality of League of Legends being played. How do you feel about your victory over Origin yesterday?
Well, it wasn't the victory that we were expecting, but at the end of the day, it was still a win. Obviously, we are not on the level of G2 and Fnatic, but we have to play what works best for us. And yeah, that's the style it worked for us, and can't do more about it.
Yeah, no, but if that's the style that you think works for you and that is working for you, then there's no reason for you to change it. Coming into this series today, how did you readjust knowing that you'd be playing up against Schalke?
I mean, we learned a lot draft-wise, and I think we were a bit nervous yesterday on stage, like especially the first few games, and that's why we were really slow. But we can consider yesterday's game as a warm-up, and today we should be ready to win against Schalke.
Well, you have to be warmed up for today because you've got a best of 5 to decide whether you go to Worlds or not. You've missed out on it in the past. A lot of your team have missed out on it in the past. What would it mean for you to represent Europe on the world stage?
It would mean everything. I mean, it's every single player goal to make it worse, and I had this goal since I started playing professionally, and I will keep going at it until I get there.
And just let's pretend that you win the series today. Let's imagine that happens, right? Because obviously we're talking before the series has even started. What would be your expectation? How far do you think you'd get at a World Championship?
I mean, it's kind of hard to tell, because like right now we are kind of playing really slow. But if we can manage to play like to fix a bit our early game. I feel like we can definitely make it that far, but I don't know. It's hard to tell.
Okay, because in the past, your early game has been a strength. You especially, your early jungle pathing was something we praised for a lot of the split. What has actually changed for Splyce that means that you're now struggling with it?
Thing is, like, the loss against Rogue affected us a bit, and it hit our confidence as well. So yeah, since then, like, we had a lot of time to practice, but the internet wasn't so great either. Like, so the practice was kind of up and down. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure that today our early game should be more solid than it was yesterday.
Okay, well, I wish you the best of luck in your series today. We'll see if you can make it to Worlds for the first time ever. Thank you very much, Xerxes. Back to you guys.
Thank you very much, Medic. You really grilled them, but I think that's fair, seeing how today they will have to step it up if they want to qualify for Worlds. Now, in terms of this matchup in 2018, Schalke and Splyce both didn't make it to Worlds through that gauntlet, but today one of them will be able to jump over that final hurdle and find themselves in the World Championship. So let's also set the story for both teams. For Schalke, then, who won a shot at redemption. Last year, they were in the final Frost, and it looked like everything was primed for upset to finally get to Worlds, but they fell short.
And that's kind of the big jumping off point for me. It's seeing this guy on your screen actually get a berth on an international stage and show why he is one of the strongest ADCs in the league. When we have, you know, big names like, or heavy hitters like Reckless and Perks who are already attending, it would feel amazing whether it's Kabe or upset, but I would love to have a German player and a German team get to play in front of a German crowd in Berlin. That would just be insane.
I'm looking at the rest of the roster as well. The guys that are setting upset up. Trick has been to the World Championship many times.
Ignar.
Ignar as well. His Misfits run, where he defined the whole meta of the tournament, telling his mid laner to buy Ardent Sensor. I'm going to play Blitzcrank. And that was a heavy hitter. And I think in the right meta, these guys can be very deadly.
And I think that's something to really hone in on as we look at this best of five. Xerxes said it in his interview, confidence, and that's kind of the word that's been plaguing Splyce this entire time. They always talk about their confidence and how comfortable they're feeling on stage. But I think the same thing can be reflected back at Schalke. These are young rosters that don't have necessarily the same synergy in terms of longevity of playing together that some of our other big hitters like Fnatic and G2 have. And now you're looking at Odo, Trick, and Ignar versus Kabe, who is actually going to be that anchor and say, hey guys, we've played on some of the biggest stages in the world, we can get you to that point. Who's going to have the cool head to prevail today?
Absolutely right. And when I was looking across Twitter, I got a bit nervous yesterday. I saw Odoamna, I said upset tweeting, well, that was definitely series or whatever. Are we going to have not an easy time? But, you know, they kind of were implying what we also thought of the series, that it didn't look like both teams were really in form. I hope that they do approach this with the amount of seriousness that is needed, because you can get caught off guard in a do-or-die series like this. And Splyce, they had that series yesterday. And for them as an organization, we saw it there, we talked about it before, 2016 with Yamato Cannon at the helm was the last time this organization was there. It's a long time coming.
It's been a while. There's been many regional qualifiers for a lot of these guys. I'm looking at Vigichachi. I don't know how many regional qualifiers he's lost. He's always been so close.
All of them.
I think Kobe wants to come back as well and do more than just getting pounded in the groups, because that's what happened to us. You know, we had a tough group.
Yep.
I think they want it.
Yeah, they absolutely want it, but then they have to show it to us on the Rift, because today they're up versus a very different opponent, Frost. When we look at play styles, it's not all in the late game for Schalke. No, they will try and hit you in the mid game.
Yeah, and they're a team fighting team, which you kind of expect. If there's any expectations going into the series, it's that we're going to have a lot of explosive, big 5v5 action. I think that Schalke in particular are one of our best front-to-back team fighters in the LEC. I think when things break down, get a little bit messy, when it turns into more skirmishes, even if all 10 players are grouped, that's where Fnatic and the G2 start to shine. But if you get your big, meaty tank line set in front of you and you have a guy like Upset or you have a guy like Kabe, that's where these teams thrive. Stylistically, Schalke versus Fnatic, they move too fast. Rogue versus Splyce, Rogue moved too fast for Splyce. But for Splyce and Schalke, both of these teams do tend to be more about the setup, slow it down a little bit. So hopefully we'll get to see both these play styles really shine and what they like to do.
I think it's great that you bring up speed, because I think that kind of defined the level of a lot of our teams in the LEC. I think when teams are playing at a high pace with a high accuracy, that's what makes them good. When I compare Schalke and Splyce, I feel like Schalke is very similar in the sense that they want to set up upset for that victory. I feel like they can facilitate that much better because they add all these extra steps. They actually gank into bottom, the pressure through mid into bottom. They make sure upset has these extra turret platings. And then in the mid game, they set up these fights around the objectives. They're actually making things happen. And I think that's the biggest difference maker here against Splyce.
Yeah, I really like what you were talking about kind of when we were going through rehearsals. It feels like Schalke know their identity, that they'll play through Upset and Ignar more. Whereas Splyce, it feels like they're kind of teetering between playing through Humanoid, playing through Kabe, and sometimes even going up into that top lane. It's not the same consistent punch. And while that can make Schalke telegraph, that also makes Schalke very consistent. You know that they're very refined and very practiced with their particular style.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yesterday, I don't think we saw the best Splyce. Maybe in Game 5, there were glimpses of it. Yamada, if you'd have to choose a perfect composition for them to play through in this best of 5, what would it be?
I'm thinking champions like the Kaiser, the Nautilus, the Kaiser we saw many, many times. I think Kiana is a champion that Humanoid did very well on in that Fnatic victory. But I'm sure it's going to be banned because this is a champion that both teams played today. But the main things that stand out here is that Vichchachi is playing the GP, a champion that is good to be on an island, leave him alone, have that gangplank ultimate to ult onto bottom. Gragas has options to gank into both sides with that Nautilus, and all of a sudden you can play for that Kaiser. You have an early game plan, you can leave GP alone, and that's what I want to see from Splyce today.
Yeah, as said, a lot of these things might be banned away, but that is the ideal scenario. Tell me about Schalke. What do they put up against that?
Well, the fun part is I want to see exactly the same from Schalke. Exactly the same. I think they have a lot more options, you know. I think it fits the exact same mold because Odoamne, leave him on an island. I think he has a lot more picks that suits his playstyle more in the shape of Rumble and Cannon, but I think it's all the same thing. Just put Trick on a tank that is good to gank into bottom lane, Ignar with some kind of setup, make sure that Upset is ahead, and all of a sudden you have a game on our hand. I want to see rockets and fireworks and explosions in the bot lane, because then it means we have a good game on our hands.
And I agree with Yamato, just the idea that the core responsibility of a lot of these players and the champions that they want to do overlap for both these teams, but I do want to put a magnifying glass on some of the key differences, in particular some of the pocket picks. You know, are we going to get Chachi's Poppy? Are we going to see Odo's Rumble? Is it going to be Upset's Caitlyn? Is it going to be Kabe's Vel'Koz? Like, I think that if this series goes the distance, that's when the differences between these teams, between these players, will be that tiny inch that get them over the line to Worlds.
Yeah, we are counting down to this best of 5. There are 2 things that I still want to talk about. One is Xerxes. We heard from him in the interview. Yamato, you had some harsh words for him, saying this is a guy that needs to step up in order for Splyce to succeed today.
I had very harsh words for him because I expect so much more from him. In the regular split, he was a menace. He was very deadly. He was the scariest player on Splyce because he was so creative in the way he played. Yesterday, we saw Xerxes that was on Elise. He was picking these early game champions to maybe transition Splyce into a late game, but I think he is much more than just that. I think he can do a lot more on the more creative picks. I'm just thinking that Xerxes didn't fulfill the kind of legacy that I have in mind yesterday.
And I think there's a lot of pressure on Xerxes to kind of be the one avenue of attack for Splyce in an early game. You keep listening to teams as they talk about Splyce, and they say that they don't really push when they're on offense, so they don't take as much as they could. And I think Xerxes, with some of those early game picks, was trying to shore that up. Whereas on the other side, again, the small, minute differences. We expect Schalke and Splyce to team fight, but I put emphasis that Schalke will attack you in lane, especially in that bot lane. They're much more bloodthirsty than I think Norskeren and Kabe are.
And speaking about that bot lane and in general, when we look at the stakes for this match, it is obvious, getting to Worlds, but it is much more intricate for so many of these players because they've tried so many times and they feel like they deserve it, but then they have to show it today. The bot lane comes up, but across the board, Frosk, many players deserve it today, but only 5 will get there.
And it sounds so cliche to say whoever wants it more on the day is going to get it, but I actually really do believe when you have rosters this young, it's one of those intangibles that you can't really see on the field, but you can definitely see it as the players are settling down and, you know, getting set up, as they're walking back into the break room. If you just keep your eyes on their reactions, when you have guys that have kind of this level of inexperience or kind of this green to this big of a stage, that's when you start to see some of those cracks of who is actually going to be clutch today, who's going to step up.
We'll see. A mini Yamato speech, 10 seconds.
Mini Yamato speech, I think, you know, there's a lot on the line. I think the guys on your screen are the ones that are going to decide it. So at the end of the day, there will only be one winner, one loser, and one will go home happy, one will go home very, very sad because it's a long off season.
I will say this. I think whether it's Kabe or upset, Europe can feel very proud of the 3 superstar ADCs that we will send to Worlds.
All right, fantastic. Let's see if they leave it all on the Rift. Play your hearts out, because Worlds is the biggest stage in League of Legends, and tonight some of these players will see their dreams finally come true. It is time for Schalke versus Splyce.
Longtime underdogs, Splyce failed to make a comeback to Worlds after their 2016 run. This year, Splyce have shown that they are not to be underestimated.
Dash back and out safety, fancy forward, comes in from Humanoid, they're trying to the play, North Darren is a hero! That was a monster play!
They gave up the long-held second spot to Fnatic in 2 devastating losses at the end of the split.
Continues in his AD carry versus AD carry, and Kobe is feeling himself! The Reckless says, not today!
Which seemed to affect their performance even more going into playoffs.
Looks like he finds it, it's a beautiful engage, everyone goes in, Humanoid is left holding his head in his hands, he doesn't even get to participate, the Akali is useless, Woolite takes down Kami! Rogue have destroyed Splyce.
Let's not forget, though, that we have seen greatness within this team. We know what they are capable of. We need to see Splyce reset their mental after their short playoff run, and we want to see a return of the calculated beasts they were early in the split. In the past, Schalke have been built around one player, their AD carry superstar Upset.
Look at the base, look at the base! Oh, Papa, you wanted a fiesta, and Schalke are here for a party!
This year we've seen Trick, Ignar, Odoamne, and Abadage all step up, and Schalke became a much stronger, well-rounded team.
Abadage goes in, Abadage goes down, but here comes Odo! He slices through them all, and Ignar's going to chase down Larson as well, like Warlock is already done. Larson tries to flash away, but it's a quadra kill for Odo!
The addition of Trick to this roster has opened up so many options for what used to be a relatively one-dimensional team, contesting the best of the best in the LEC with an often explosive early game and incredible teamfight prowess.
He's going to heal up, Finn was on his way down as well, just double dash across the wall, but Trick going in, and Odo there with a flash chase. It's easy enough for Schalke, first blood.
The last time we saw Schalke, they came up short, but to make it to Worlds, they will need to refocus on the task ahead of them. If they can rise above the rest, they will earn their spot at Worlds and a second shot at the team who took them down in Athens. Regional qualifiers have never been so exciting, and it all starts now.
Schalke versus Splyce, the last spot at Worlds 2019 in the line. The stakes could not be higher. I said it once. I'll say it again. I'm Dracos, here with VODS, hoping for an absolute banger of the series. 2 teams remaining. One of them will go to Worlds and play Fnatic tomorrow to decide the seed. The other one will go home empty-handed and disappointed.
Right. Let's be honest right now, Dracos.
Already?
Because, yeah, we got to into this right now. Splyce were very slow yesterday, and that is not going to cut it at the World Championships, and it's not going to cut it against the likes of Splyce. So you know what? I'll forgive you against Origin yesterday, but we need to see more from them today if they want to stand a chance against the best teams in the world.
And as we